Bourgeous. Today we're going to be talking about how to calculate slope. First, let's do a couple of review problems that will help us keep from forgetting what we've learned about already with equations and inequalities. So let's start out with grabbing ourselves a marker and look at this first problem. So we're going to solve this equation. We're going to collect the like terms that are on the right side of the equation. So we'll have 3u minus 11u, which would give us a negative 8u plus 9. And all of that's going to equal negative 23 on the other side of the equal sign. We'll move the 9 across to be with the 23. Well, we're going to subtract 9 from both sides. And that will leave us with negative 8u is equal to negative 23 minus 9 was negative 32. I like those numbers because I know 8 will go into 32. So when I divide both sides by negative 8, I end up with u equals 4. So that's how we solve a more advanced inequality or equation problem that's got a couple of variables where you have to collect the like terms. Okay, so we're still talking about graphing and slope. We've been doing that for a couple of lessons now. We want to remember that the rate of change between any 2 points on a line is called its slope. It is the measure of how steep a line is. Now, if you look at one of the pyramids here, that's a pretty steep slope going up that line. Meanwhile, this ramp that you could be walking up isn't quite so steep. And there's a lot of ramps that you see around buildings now that they have to be there to allow people who are in wheelchairs to get up them, but they can't be so steep that they can't make it. So they got to be just a gradual slope. Another thing that we remembered was when we're looking at a coordinate system, if I have a line that kind of slants down like this is considered a negative slope. If I have a line that goes straight up and down, like we saw in the slope dude video, that is an undefined slope. If I have a line that gradually goes up from left to right, that is considered a positive slope. And then a flat line like this that just goes horizontally is considered to be a zero slope. All right, keep on going. So let's find the slope of this line that's graphed below. So one way that we've talked about finding slope is just going from one point to the other and actually literally counting. Okay, and this one has got a negative slope, so that means I'm going down 1, 2, 3. So I go down 3, and then I go over 1, 2. And the change in the y, this negative 3, goes on the top of my slope fraction, and the over number 2 goes on the bottom. So the slope of this line is a negative 3/2 slope. All right, so to find the slope of a line, you're finding the ratio of the change in y, or the vertical direction, to the change in x, the horizontal direction. A couple of other ways that we write that is just the change in y over the change in x, or it's the rise over the run. Well, we're going to give you a way to calculate it using a little formula. So here's a slope formula which is basically a math formula for calculating slope. And it's read this way. And oftentimes we use the letter m to denote slope so that we don't have to just keep writing the word slope over and over again. And we'll describe why we use m a little bit more in the future. But for now, just keep in mind when you see m like that, it represents slope. All right, so the slope formula basically is this. We had to take the second y value of our points and subtract the first y value of the 2 points we're looking at. That goes on top. And then on the bottom, we have the second x value, subtract the first x value. So it's just a simple little formula with a subtraction in it. So let's look at what we mean. So if I have point 1, 4, 2, and point number 2, 1, 0, then the two numbers in the point 1 are x1 and y1. The two numbers in point 2 are x2 and y2. So I basically set up a little bit of a subtraction here. I just do y2 minus y1, so I would have 0 subtract 2 on the top, and I would have 1 minus 4 on the bottom. Now it looks kind of like funny numbers, look a little bit scary, but they aren't. If we just go ahead and subtract them, 0 minus 2 is negative 2, and 1 minus 4 is negative 3. And if I have two negatives, they cancel each other out, because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So the slope of my line, final answer then, would be 2/3. And that's all there is to this slope formula. So let's continue on. Here's yet another method. This is called stack them and subtract them. So if I have 2 points, like we did just a minute ago, we stack them vertically like this. And it really doesn't matter which way you stack them, because you got to keep track of what's going on. So you do 6 minus 4. These are the x values. So 6 minus 4 would be 2. And that's the change in x. And then negative 1 subtract negative 1, which really means negative 1 plus 1, which is 0. That's what goes on top. And so the slope in this case would be 0 slope, because you have 0 on top. This would just be a flat line. Okay, so there's our 2 different ways to calculate slope. All right, so let's try a couple. Let's try the slope formula on this one. So m equals y2 minus y1. So here's y2. So we're going to have 4 minus y1, which is 3. And we're going to, that'll be on top, and on the bottom we'll have x2 minus x1. So we'll have negative 2 subtract negative 4. So when we do that, 4 minus 3 is 1, and negative 2 minus negative 4 is 2, because that's negative 2 plus 4 when you think about it. So the slope of a line that contains those 2 points is 1/2. Hey, that's pretty straightforward. Okay, let's do the stack them and subtract them on this one. So we'll call this our first point. Let's put negative 3 here and 6 here. We're going to subtract our points. So negative 7 minus 6. What's negative 7 minus 6? Well, that's negative 13. And negative 7 minus negative 3 would be the same as negative 7 plus 3. So that's negative 4. So this number goes on top, or bottom, excuse me. The change in x goes on the bottom, and the change in y goes on the top. So we would have negative 13 over negative 4, and as we saw a few minutes ago, these negative signs are going to cancel each other out. So my final slope is just 13 over 4. And we like to leave slope as a reduced fraction in improper form. Okay, on Alex, you're going to see some questions like this. So here's a couple where you'll have 2 points that will give you. It says find the slope of the line passing through those 2 points. So let's take a look at this one. Let's do y2 minus y1. So that would be 9 minus 9, which is 0 on top. And, well, since I already know what's on top, I know this is going to have a 0 slope. But we'll go ahead and subtract the bottom. 5 minus negative 8, which is saying 5 plus 8. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. This is 0 over 13. So the slope would be 0 on this one. Find the slope of a line passing through these 2 points. Well, let's do negative 3 minus 6. Negative 3 minus 6. That's the y value subtracted. That equals negative 9. And then we have negative 6 minus negative 6, which when I do that calculation, I end up with 0. Oh, here's one of those unusual cases when we have a 0 on the bottom. That means we have an undefined slope. Undefined. And there will be a selection on Alex for you to pick that one as well, if that is indeed the answer. So there's how to do a problem like that. So let's just review real quick. Remember that the slope is the change in y over the change in x. It's the rise or fall over the run. So now you've got an assignment calculating slope. You can use the slope formula or you can stack them and subtract them. So good luck on today's assignment. Thank you very much.